season's first big showdown of cycling's top sprinters and the one-day classic specialists. Hi everyone, Steve Schlanger, Todd Gogulski. Yesterday, frigid temperatures greeting the riders for day one, but that certainly did not distill the drama, Gogo.
It certainly didn't. Luca Paolini there, we just saw making the initial tack, being joined by Matty Breschel, and then Linus Gerdemann as they come to the finish line. Many kilometers later, it's Linus Gerdemann, the German in blue, coming around with the field nipping on their heels.
For Gerdemann, it was his second win of the season so far. He gets the first sip of champagne at this year's Race of the Two Seas, and he'll go into stage number 2 as the leader on the overall general classification. And this is the way the numbers break down. Gerdemann with a 4-second lead over Pablo Lastras. Matty Breschel 6 seconds off the pace. The highest profile name on that leaderboard, Cadel Evans, he's within 10 seconds of the top spot. This was the start of stage 2 earlier today. Again, very cold temperatures as the riders roll out of the start and finish town of Montecatini Terme. The race starting and ending in the same spot today. And Linus Gerdemann, the 27-year-old German for Milram, the first one to don the Maglia Azzurra, the blue jersey that belongs to the overall race leader at this 45th edition of Tirreno Adriatico.
Well, it's Steve, we can see here not very much action yet because the race always starts out neutral as they leave Montecatini Terme, go out, head out on a big loop, fairly flat except for one big climb in the middle there where things may break up a bit. When they get back into town, they'll come through a few times and finally hit 4 finishing circuits over a 9.1 mile course with a nice little climb in it, and that should bring a little bit of fireworks later on in the day.
Those 4 circuits, 14.5 kilometers apiece. The stage altogether, 165 kilometers. And our first look at the main field, and they are on the circuits already with just about 38 kilometers left to go in the stage. There is a break of 4 riders up the road, a little more than 4 minutes in front of this peloton right now that has about 2.5 laps left to go. So the next time they cross the finish line, that'll mean 2 circuits remaining in this race here on stage number 2. And the course profile indicates that they've already gone over the big climb of the day at about the 80-kilometer mark, and the green line indicating where the riders are right now as they proceed up this climb that's just about 211 meters of climbing, and they do this 4 times. And again, they've already done it once, and really no concern with the 4 riders up the road right now. No GC threats in play.
In fact, I had a chance to speak with the director of the Milram team of Linus Gerdemann, the overall leader. His name's Christian Henn. Called him up in the team car just to get a little bit of a feel what happened out there earlier on in this race. And they said basically this break went up very early, about 3 kilometers into the race, 4 guys up the road. Once they got a couple minutes, the Milram team did go to the front and start riding what we call a tempo, or a steady state, to keep them in check. That group extended their lead to over 4 minutes on the big climb, but still no real worry. As they came down into town here, the sprinters teams have come to the front to start to help out because they can taste a potential sprint victory here.
4 minutes, 10 seconds is the official gap, and you have Garmin, Milram, Katusha, and Liquigas, the main teams who are setting the pace at the front end of the main field up this climb right now on a cloudy and cold day. Now our first look at the 4 leaders, and here in this group, at the back in the orange jersey, you have Alain Perez, the 27-year-old Euskaltel rider. Also from Italy on the Colnaga team, Alain Marangoni. Then Mikhail Ignatiev, the Russian on the Katusha team, is here. And finally, to round things out from the ISD squad in the yellow, it's Diego Kakia.
Well, poor Kakia yesterday finished last place in the race as he must have been involved in something and lost over 15 minutes down. And look at this, here's a picture of Mark Cavendish, still suffering quite a bit from that lack of fitness he has, as he's had some dental problems earlier this year. He's really trying to come back into some form. Talked with his director yesterday as well, Brian Holm, and he said, you know, the objective for Cavendish is just to survive this and get the fitness out of this race, and hopefully by the last day he can have some legs to sprint.
Well, that tooth infection that he had lasted a lot longer than he anticipated, and he says by his estimation right now he's in early March where he typically is at the end of January. So that's on a scale of the fitness that Mark Cavendish believes. That's how far he's behind right now.
Yeah, well, let's take it into perspective. Cavendish goes to their early camp in the Canary Islands with the team Columbia HTC or HTC Columbia this year. He only was able to ride with the team 2 days, and he only did 20 kilometers a day because he had a fever, he had an infection, and so it was really tough for him. He only rode 4 or 5 days in all of January, so he's very much behind because these other guys are doing 500 miles a week in January.
What Cavendish hopes that he can use this Tirreno Adriatico race to get him the necessary form to defend his title in a little more than a week at the season's first monument, Milan-San Remo.
I can tell you right now, I don't see it happening. I don't see how he can get the form he needs for that.
So 4 riders with a lead of a little more than 4 minutes right now, with under 40 kilometers left to go on stage 2 here at Tirreno Adriatico. Will this break stay away? Will the sprinters finally have their say? Stage 2 rolls on after this. As we bring you back to stage 2 of Tirreno Adriatico, the lead of our 4-man breakaway has dropped to right around 3.5 minutes, with under 35K left to go in this stage, starting and ending today in Montecatini Terme. And the pace at the front end of the main field being driven by the new Team Sky, which you can pick out in the dark and white colors there. Katusha Garmin positioned in behind our rider from Team Sky. Sky, one of the easiest of the new kits to pick out. It's black, blue, and white.
They're pretty easy from some positions, but a little bit tough from others because it's very black, and that's like the Cervelo test team. But this here is a very easy man to see. Fabian Cancellara, the Swiss national road champion, in the red jersey with a white plus on his back.
Now Fabian Cancellara from the Saxo Bank squad, riding safely in the confines of the main field right now. And coming up along his right, the Italian national champion and former winner of Tirreno Adriatico, Filippo Pozzato. And interestingly enough, he and his good friend Andy Schleck, who's also in this race, have been writing blogs over the course of the last few weeks. And Schleck apparently was teasing Pozzato, saying he had a metrosexual look. Well, Pozzato didn't know what the term metrosexual meant. He thought he called him something else that he felt was more derogatory, so Pozzato took some exception with that. So Schleck comes back in his follow-up blog and say, hey, Pozzato is nothing but heterosexual. I want to clear that up right now. He's a good friend. He knows what I'm talking about, so we had a few laughs over that.
Well, you know, these sort of phrases that originate from the U.S., there's a little bit of a translation issue sometimes by the time it makes it to Italy.
He said he had to Google it to find out.
and speaking of those jerseys, we still see Cancellara in the red there. That's because they're a national champion in that discipline, so it's different than the rest of his Saxo Bank team. Same thing with Pozzato, who's on the Katusha team. Different jersey because he's the reigning Italian road champion.
And still early in the season. Sometimes takes a while to really identify all of the riders wearing the national jerseys, also wearing their new team kits. You get used to, over the course of several months, seeing them in the same colors, but sponsors, riders, they all change each and every year as we go inside 33K left to go now. And again, the 4-man breakaway consisting of Perez of the Euskaltel team. He's in the orange. Also Mikhail Ignatiev of the Katusha team in the white out front there. Diego Kakia of the ISD team. Also represented with Polnago's Alan Marangoni, the Italian, in the 4-man break. There's Tyler Farah for the Garmin team.
Number 102, orange on the top of his helmet, white on his back, and you can see the armada of Garmin guys around him. They just want to keep him out of trouble and try and get him to the front right at the end of the race, and he can unleash those legs for the sprint.
Tyler was one of the few sprinters who finished relatively high up in the placings yesterday, even though most of the major sprinters missed out.
Looks like we got a crash
we see a little bit of a crash on the side of the road, right side of the pavement here. A couple of riders involved.
Looks like a couple of the Milram riders, which is not good for our overall leader, Linus Gerdemann, and as well, that is a Lampre rider and an ISD rider who's got someone off the front.
Doesn't look too serious. Looks like a soft landing spot as well there.
They're all back on there. And you see the car on the left here, this car that's pulled off the road. Often you'll see crashes when the race had to pull a car over at the last minute, and all of a sudden the field squishes over and you get that problem like that. It could have been the reason that crash happened.
And back towards the front end of the peloton right now.
That's Ian Stannard of the Sky team. White on the back, but black on the sides. And it's a really a very heralded team. A lot of people expect big things from that new team, a big British team on the scene this year.
Well, no surprise to see a lot of the Garmin riders near the front, as well as Liquigas. That was the way we saw things develop yesterday, as Liquigas tried to position Daniela Bonatti for a sprint. It was Garmin trying to get Tyler Farah in position to win as well. Farah still looking for his first win of 2010, and I mentioned that Farah was one of the best placed sprinters on the GC standings yesterday, and he was quite upset because he felt he got pinched off around a corner because guys were fighting for position and doing things that were a little bit too aggressive in his thinking.
And these Cervelo guys we're seeing here are actually, we noticed they were coming back up to the back of the bunch because they had gotten gapped off from that crash. So these things happen in these circuits where things heat up on the pace, and when people crash, it splits the field sometimes. Right on the front, the Canadian is Michael Berry for the Sky team.
Now, the good thing about conditions today, for the most part, the roads have been dry, even though it's still very cold out there. Yesterday, they faced rainy, cold, and wet conditions for the majority of the stage. But today, the roads are dry, even though there's been a chance of snow in the forecast. So far, so good, 3.5 hours in. Now, this race, always an important precursor to the first monument of the season, Milan-San Remo. So many of the riders come to Tirreno Adriatico looking to polish the form, get the race speed and the fitness necessary to compete in one of the longest races of the entire year, almost 300 kilometers, first big monument, first big one-day affair of the year. And it comes up just a few days after the end of Tirreno Adriatico. Our final day is next Tuesday, and then on Saturday, it's Milan-San Remo already.
I can tell you what, these guys already have Milan-San Remo on the back of their mind, Steve, because at almost 300 kilometers, we're looking at almost a 200-mile day. That is very tough to have any legs left at the end.
Now looking down on Liquigas in the green, left side are some Katusha riders. Up front, Saxo Bank is in there mixing things up as well. So as they make their way around these circuits, headed towards the start-finish line there, and once they get there, that'll mean 2 laps left to go. So still quite a ways, about 30 kilometers, as these circuits are 14.5K apiece, and there is an intermediate sprint at the finish line. So this will be the second time that these riders will have gotten a look at what they're in store for when they come around for the final time.
We'll see if these guys actually really all out contest this intermediate sprint, or if they're going to try and continue to work together to better their chances for staying away from the field.
An ISD rider in the yellow there out front, Diego Kakia, the 28-year-old, off to his right in the orange again, Alain Perez of the Euskaltel team.
Perez,
and those two are going to
first.
sprint for it. And it will be the Euskaltel rider, Alain Perez, who takes the intermediate sprint here. Now 2 circuits left to go. Tirreno Adriatico, one of 2 big stage races happening right now in Europe. Over in France, after 4 days at Paris-Nice, Alberto Contador is the new overall leader on the general classification. He exploded up to the mountaintop finish on today's stage number 4, took command, and now has a 24-second lead. El Pistolero, as he is known, has really putting his signature on that race. And after crashing a few days ago, it looks like he's in position to perhaps go on and win Paris-Nice this year.
Really, the Spaniards putting their stamp on it there, taking first, second, and third, with Valverde second and Sammy Sanchez third. But we'll take you back to Italy now, and it's Aqua and Sapone here on the front of the field, because they do not have representation in that breakaway. That's that red jersey that looks just a little bit like some of the other red jerseys out there. But keep your eyes peeled for Aqua and Sapone here. Right behind them in the lime green is Liquigas with 2 riders.
And Daniela Bonatti is their primary sprinter. And all of the sprinters missed out yesterday. There was a 4-man break that really came together in the final kilometers that was able to stay away just ahead of a charging peloton in the closing meters, and Linus Gerdemann just able to sneak out the win ahead of Pablo Lastras of the Kesteparn team.
Well, let's tell you guys a little bit about these guys in the break. Perez here in the back, the Euskaltel rider, is actually really known as a support rider. does a lot of support for his team leader, so this is a big opportunity for him. And he came into the day only 10 seconds down in the overall classification. So if they can stay away at all, he is going to vault right up there and really contend for the overall lead today. But the question is, can they stay away?
Now you see just how much the lead has come down with 24.6 kilometers left to go. The chalkboard indicating to these riders 1:45, the gap back to the main field. So they're quickly bringing it back. And with 4 laps around the town, 14.5 kilometers apiece, they'll know exactly what that run into the finish is going to look like. Seeing it that many times, it gives plenty of opportunity to the teams, the directors, to have an open line of communication and discuss strategy at length with how they want to tactically play things when they come around for the final time.
That's very true, Stephen. I have to tell you also, from the rider's perspective, we always know if it finishes on a circuit that the guys see multiple times, it gets blazingly hot because everybody throws down. They have the corners dialed. Every part of the course is maximum speed, and it's very tough to stick on a group like this.
And with dry roads like today, you can imagine that everybody will be aggressive.
That's still Team Sky on the front of the field. Back to the front of the breakaway is the man who's always very low, and you can see just from the back how much lower he is than the other guys. That's Mikhail Ignatiev, and he really has made his name on the road in the time trial. So he kind of has a time trialer's position even when he's out here in the road races.
So as the riders navigate these circuits, they have a 211-meter climb each time around. And after exiting the circuits themselves, they have a gradual downhill, then a flat run for about 12K before the slight uphill to the finish line. So nothing terribly difficult for these riders. The big climb of the day happened much earlier before they entered the circuits. That was 80K in. They're well past that now as they come up on what is about to be the final 25K of racing.
Yeah, and I think really the most difficult part of today's race is these circuits. It's these descents here. This descent has some pretty tight turns, and that sharp little climb, it's just under 2 miles in length. I think all the riders see this as the toughest part of the course.
Second of 3 days in Tuscany. First day in the medieval burg of Montecatini Terme. The race today starting and finishing in the same town. And stage 2 rolls on as the peloton is in pursuit of the 4 leaders within 2 minutes here at the moment. The pace starting to pick up. Just about 17 kilometers left to race, and once these riders come around, they will hear the bell indicating one more circuit around the town of Montecatini Terme. And the gap to our 4 leaders also just slipping away as well.
Look at the speed, 36 miles an hour, 60 kilometers an hour, with the breakaway being led here by the Colnago rider. And these guys trying very hard to hold on to this gap, but it is going to be touch and go all the way to the line, Steve.
Yesterday on stage 1, we had one lone leader for the bulk of the day. He was absorbed late, and then 4 other riders made their counterattack stick all the way to the line. Today we have 4 riders trying to stay away for the majority of the day, and this has been the primary break since early on in the stage. We'll see if working together they can once again thwart the ambition of the sprinters.
Still Liquigas on the front in the lime green there for their sprinter Bonatti, and you have to be really surprised that yesterday, let's take people back, the 4 guys get caught in the final corner by the field, but probably because of the slipperiness of the rain, the field can't swarm them, and the 4 riders still end up pulling away in the final 300 meters and taking first through fourth. That's very rare in a professional bike race.
Also important to point out, while Tirreno Adriatico overall is billed as a race for the big sprinters, not every stage lays itself out perfectly for a field sprint. Most of the directors are saying there's only stages that are classic field sprint stages in this year's edition. Yesterday was one of them. Today is also one, so they're not going to want to miss out 2 days in a row.
Yeah, they're going to have to wait a long time after today because another sprint finish likely will not happen until the final day next Tuesday.
ISD rider in the yellow, bringing up the rear here, Diego Caquia, a 28-year-old. And at the front, the Colnago rider. Now these riders pretty much know the inevitable will be happening shortly. Anytime the lead comes down at the rate that it has been, you know that you're not going to stay away.
But
if it's coming down gradually, if it's just in increments, then maybe you start to think perhaps we have a chance. But when the peloton has taken chunks of time away from you, you know it's going to happen.
Well, I could tell you the man we were just looking at, Alain Perez, the Euskaltel rider in orange, he is the guy who really wants this to stick. Like we were talking a minute ago, he comes into the day only 10 seconds behind Linus Gerdemann in the overall. So he is trying to coax everything out of the three breakaway companions to stay away.
One of the narrow corridors that they face through town here. And now the four leaders approaching the finish line for the second to last time. Very good crowd lining the barricades on this Thursday in northwestern Italy. Second of 7 days of racing at one of Italy's most prestigious stage races.
See the tongue out on our leader right now, Alain Marangoni. That is an Italian rider on that Colnago squad. In fact, that entire squad is Italian. The white chest and blue sleeves as he swings off. And they're getting the bell, Steve. 1 lap remains. Ignatiev, the Belarusian, on the front. He's probably the most decorated rider in this group. He's actually an Olympic gold medalist from 2004 when he was racing on the velodrome. But he's made the switch over to the road. Look at the field now. It is single file and about to pop. They are in hot pursuit.
Well, it's funny, anytime you approach the bell lap, you get that sense of urgency, that sense of desperation in a way when you still have a group that's hanging out front like that. As the clock ticks up just past half a minute right now, even though there's still quite a bit of racing left to go. I mean, 14.5 kilometers. These aren't those 1, 2, 3 kilometer circuits. This is still a pretty healthy road to travel.
Yeah, it's not looking very good for these guys, but yeah, if they can get to the finish line and still have over a minute as this clock ticks, they may have a chance. And here's a guy on the front we haven't talked about much, Francais Lejoux. It's that white jersey with a little bit of blue spots on it, and he's riding for his team sprinter, Kutarovic, a Belarusian as well, who was 5th yesterday. He won the field sprint right behind the breakaway.
Just a little more than a minute back to the main field.
So, you know, these guys still have to think they have a chance.
Now still a long way to go, though. I don't know. This main field is not going to want to miss out, especially with all of the sprinters that feel like they missed out on a huge opportunity yesterday.
This is Liquigas has taken an attack off the front as they hit the bottom slopes of the climb for the last time. And look at that. It's one of the leaders for the Liquigas team, Agnoli, 131. That signifies typically the rider whose number ends in 1 is the leader. Probably their backup leader as Daniela Bonatti, but Bonatti probably can't finish on the uphill sprints the next couple of days. Agnoli here testing just a little bit.
Valerio Agnoli, the first big attack from the main field since they have been in pursuit of the 4-man breakaway. So still quite a ways out from the finish line, but Agnoli launching nonetheless, and perhaps seeing if he'll bridge across to make it a 5-man group.
It's a pretty bold move. Oh, look at this. He is
yeah, he's not going to do it.
Stopped in his tracks.
Now, the quality of the sprinters in this Tirreno Adriatico field is just too good. Their team's just too motivated. And here on this second day of racing, they're not going to let anybody go. And now their singular focus is bringing back the 4-man break on this final circuit of the day. Stage number 2 of Tirreno Adriatico coming down to the final 12 kilometers, and the 4-man breakaway just 51 seconds ahead of a hard-charging main field that's being led by the team of the Adriatico champion, Scarponi. This is the Androni Giacottoli team at the front.
Let's say that 3 times fast. The rest of their team named PVC Diqui Giovanni and some other things as well. Look at this. We have an attack off the front of the group, and it looked like it may have been the Russian. We'll get back to them in just a moment.
And Mikhail Ignatiev going for the King of the Mountains points, no doubt, on this climb. They're doing it for the final time, yeah.
So Ignatieff there really maybe also feeling, in addition to the mountains, that his breakaway companions may be going a little too slow up this climb, and he says, guys, we have to keep the pace hot right now if we're going to stay away.
And perhaps using it as a launch pad to try and do just that, stay away the rest of the way to the finish line. Another look at his move, riding away from his three companions.
Perez, the man in orange on the front, cannot respond, and it looks like it's going to be the Italian coming up, Diego Cacchia. And actually Cacchia on that ISD Neri team, the guys in the yellow, he's a new recruit on that team. He raced the last couple years for another Barlow World. I'd be happy to have him on the roster, I'm sure.
Now the King of the Mountain point on this course, coming just beyond 153K into this 165-kilometer stage number 2. And this is back to the front end of the main field.
All Italians on the front.
I'm just 45 seconds back here.
Well, they're starting to really bring it down, and that's what the breakaway feared, because on these short climbs like this, the field has a lot of fresh legs, and they put some guys to the front to really punch it. And the breakaway guys, you can see, they just don't have that fluidity anymore. In fact, you could see Cacchia's face there, really suffering, the mouth open. Ignatieff still driving the tempo here, and he wants to make this one stick.
Now you get to the point where you have no choice. The gap coming down so rapidly that you have to just continue to push the pace as long as you possibly can and hope for the best. And again, going back to yesterday, we saw that that break that came together in the final few kilometers wasn't caught, was very close to being caught, but they did stay away. So anytime you see that, it always gives people hope.
That's right. The guys off the front know that the deck is stacked against them, but they also know that things do happen. And whether you want to call it a miracle or just a great day, we saw it yesterday, and it could happen again. Liquigas on the front right now, driving the tempo for their sprinter. And it looks like our front group is now coming back together right over the top of the climb here. This is the sprint for the Mountains points, and Ignatieff not even going for him. So I think he just was concerned that they were taking it too easy up the hill.
Just a 211-meter climb, nothing serious for these riders. Everybody will be able to make it over that relatively easily. And that's always the consideration in races like Tirreno, Adriatico, some of the one-day classics as well for the sprinters in particular, and we have so many good ones here at this race. How well do you get over the climbs and still have enough left for that sprint at the end? That's always the big question. Some do it better than others. Tyler Farah had a very good day yesterday, even though he missed out on the sprint. Said he felt extremely strong coming over the climbs on stage 1.
So much of these sprints, if it does come to a bunch sprint, it really is about positioning and just getting there and still having the legs. But we're coming now down the descent. The last time this breakaway will see it, the field in hot pursuit. This is a pretty tight corner here, this first right-hander, and the riders really having to take this descent single file. Oh, and look at this. Speaking of tight right-hander, it looks like one of our Colnago riders just about riding off into the weeds as they head through that corner.
Now Marangoni, the 25-year-old Italian, having to slam on the brakes and right the ship as this snaking descent brings the riders to the bottom, and then they'll have quite a bit of flat road that'll take them all the way to just about 2K left to go. And then they'll have a short uphill finish right at the end as they're under 10K left to go to the finish line right now.
This gives you an idea of just how fast these riders are going, as the front of the field already probably 20 seconds in front of the back end of the field. That's how long it's strung out, maybe even longer, because the front is full speed, and there's really only one good line through these corners. So everybody has to really work from the outside of the corner right into the apex and then back to the outside as they exit. And it is still for the Diqui Giovanni Androni Giacottoli squad of last year's defending champion Michele Scarponi on the front, as they really do not want this break to get away. And that was actually Gianni, the man on that team. He's actually got a pretty good sprint too, but he's really riding for Scarponi for the overall.
Well, the quality of the marquee sprinters in this field is certainly top-notch. Guys like Tom Bonin, Tyler Farah, Alessandro Pataki, Oscar Freire, Tor Hushov. We've mentioned Daniela Bonatti several times. Those are the big names that are here. Also the names that missed out on a golden sprint opportunity yesterday that never materialized. So they will want to be in position now with under 10 kilometers left to go. So many things can happen and change quickly.
Look at this, Scarponi has come to the front. That's pretty unusual to see that guy because he should be protected, but Scarponi even going to the front for a little bit of a pull in that white jersey.
Trying to defend his title from a year ago, trying to take time back.
Because 10 seconds.
Remember, as it's a 10-second deficit now, but remember at the finish line, time bonuses are available. 10, 6, and 4 to the first 3 spots across, and given the fact we're only on to day number 2, that change the balance of the GC with under 8K left to race now.
I really think the break is sunk. 10 seconds. I'd be surprised if they don't sit up. It's virtually impossible for them to stay away unless the field sits up right now. The field must have just blazed up the climb comparatively in the speed. 8 seconds. It's really over, and now we need to start thinking about field sprints, I have a feeling. As we see here, that is Perez of Euskaltel just giving Kakia a little bit of a push to get in there in front of him, as Perez has resigned himself maybe to say, look, we're going to get caught. I'm just going to sit out the pole.
Well, even from this aerial view, you can get a sense of the speed that these guys are traveling. And we started to see a moment ago some of those sprinters moving up. Tom Bonin was positioning himself. Robbie McEwen of the Katusha team was in there. Filippo Pozzato, the Italian national champion, off of Bonin's back wheel. And now Liquigas coming to the front. And look how many of them. The green has masked at the front of the peloton.
Well, they did quite a bit of work yesterday late in the race. And really, Bonatti didn't end up having the legs at the finish. In fact, Bonatti didn't even factor into the top 10 yesterday, which is pretty surprising. He's a man who really wants to take a win here on home Italian soil. Kakia still not throwing in the towel as he's all over the front, and Perez actually followed him. So maybe Perez just saying, look, Kakia looked like he was suffering a little bit. I'll just help him get up to speed and get back in the lineup.
6.5K left to go. 4-man break, can see the riders in the background.
You can see the field had split again there, so that must have been over the climb or possibly on the descent, as there's a big group catching up to about 45 riders in front of them.
These 4 riders have been away since the first few kilometers of the stage. It's 165 kilometers altogether. They went away inside the first 10 and now are about to be caught with just about 6 to go.
A group like that to have their aspirations dashed, see that field coming up behind them, and still the field trying to glue itself together back here from the split that occurred up the climb and on the descent, and they are finally back together. So look for the fireworks now, as this thing looks like it's going to come back together.
Liquigas, the first team of a true sprinter to really come together collectively as a full unit, bring all of their riders forward to try and organize things. None of the other teams have sent as many riders to the front of this peloton, so Liquigas really signaling their intention to get Bonatti perfectly placed to try and get the stage win today.
It's really impressive to see that this lead group of 4 riders is still hanging off the front, because with the field just 8 seconds behind them a few moments ago, you would have thought they would have sat up, but no, they are not giving up. They're hoping, just like yesterday, they can stay away somehow and perform a miracle.
Now Liquigas in the lime green, Cervelo test team in the black and white around them. Tor Hushov is their big sprinter in the pink and blue. That's the team of Lampre and Alessandro Pataki. The blue and white near the front, that's Katusha and the squad of Robbie McEwen. And Tom Bonin, top of your screen right now. He's on the Quick Step squad, but he's in the Belgian national champion colors. He's got the yellow, black, and red.
And Filippo Pozzato there, just behind the green jerseys, the white with the stripes. He's also a Katusha rider, teammates with McEwen, but he's the Italian national champion. Good sprinters on that squad.
All right, well, the catch about to be made as the 4 leaders absorb that Ignatiev launches the counterattack.
Nice to see from Ignatiev saying, okay, save just a little bit there at the end, and we will launch again and see if I can ride this to the finish. Ignatiev, he's a good time trialist, and he's going to have his work cut out for him here.
Now he's found several gears here today, a few different singular attacks, and now he's all in to try and make it to the finish line by himself. But boy, it's not going to happen. I mean, they are coming up on him like a runaway train, and Ignatiev knows it as he glances back over his shoulder. Liquigas leading him through with Cervello in the black just behind here. As we're inside the final 5K, remember, this is the 4th time over these roads. These riders will know this finish very intimately. The pace will be high, the racing very aggressive.
And look at all the Liquigas riders in green, but also at the front, we have Cervello and Sky, it looks like as well. Sky, the black and white, and Cervello in the all black.
Looks like Saxo Bank has a rider up there as well. They're in the black and white colors too, so not always easy to pick everybody out.
Now look at that, Frances Dejoux back on the front for their Belarusian sprinter who won the field sprint yesterday. Hutarovic is their sprinter, but that's Cervello in black, and they have a very powerful sprinter in Tor Hushoff.
A little more than 2.5K to go. Pozzato in the white with the stripes horizontally across his back, just in front of Tom Bonin in the red, yellow, and black of Quick Step. He's isolated by himself. The Katusha riders right behind Bonin. Liquigas has a couple of guys up there for Daniela Bonatti. There's Pozzato for the Katusha team right in the middle of your screen in the white. Former overall winner of Tirreno Adriatico back in 2003.
And you can see how much the pace is picked up here, Steve. Things really getting hot right now. Very tightly packed, a little bumping and jiving here going on as well. And that's what it's all about when it comes to these field sprints. You've got to muscle your way in there. You got to have some team support, but you got to be in a good position so when you go, you have a clear shot at it.
Now Liquigas by themselves at the front. Lamprey just in behind. So Liquigas, as they look to position Daniela Bonatti in a pretty good position. 2 Liquigas riders, 2 Lamprey riders, then Tom Bonin, 5th wheel. Robbie McEwen right behind Bonin.
Bonin doing a great job here with no Quick Step teammates around him. He's in that red, yellow, and black, number 151, one of the finest sprinters in the world. And you do not want to let him sit close to the front end because he could take the win.
And Robbie McEwen also very dangerous. He does not have any Katusha teammates around him. He's in a blue and white Katusha kit, but he knows how to sprint without teammates. He can pull off the victory by himself.
That's very true. McEwen really a freelance type of sprinter. Some guys like the lean out, but Bonatti, the Italian, right in front of Bonin there, sitting the green jersey at the top of your screen. Bonatti likes to have that lead out train. Well, look at that. He's got 3 guys in front of him, but Tom Bonin right on his wheel saying, go ahead, you're pulling your sprinter to the line. I'm sitting on his wheel. I'm going to try and beat him.
Under the red kite, which means 1 kilometer left to go. One of the Liquigas riders pulls out. Now 2 men left in the lead out train for Bonatti. So he's positioned very well here. Tom Bonin sitting 5th wheel right now in the yellow, red, and black. Robbie McEwen of Katusha right behind Bonin. So Bonatti has his teammates where he wants them. Now the question is, does he have the legs to pull off the sprint? Remember, you can have the proper lead-out train, but if you're not the strongest rider when the sprint commences, it doesn't do you any good.
It's perfect lead out for Liquigas. Bonatti sitting in 3rd in the green, like we just said. Bonin 4th, McEwen 5th. This is lining up to be one for the ages. It looks like it's Tor Hushoff for the Cervello team in black, about 6 wheels back. He's trying to make it happen, but no teammates around him.
Unlike yesterday, we do get the field sprint here today. They're about to open it up in the final few hundred meters. It's going to be Liquigas leading out Daniela Bonatti. Tom Bonin right behind Bonatti. Bonin makes the move to the right shoulder of Daniela Bonatti. Tom Bonin going forward on the left-hand side of your screen in the black. Bonin now up the middle. Parmar 10's on his right. Can Bonin hold him off? Yes, he does. Tom Bonin dials it up and wins stage 2 at Tirreno Adriatico.
Bonatti just not having the legs there. He waited too long. Bonin got the jump on him and just came right around.
Another look. Now Bonatti for that last 2 kilometers really had the perfect lead-out position, but as I mentioned, if you're not the strongest rider, it doesn't matter. The Belgian Tom Bonin was the strongest, and as a result, he's the winner on stage number 2.
And we bring you back to the replay of the finish. 4 wheels back, Tom Bonin. 10 wheels back is Paul Martens. And these are two guys you want to keep an eye on here, as Bonin sitting perfectly right behind the lead out of Liquigas. Daniele Bonatti sitting in the 3rd wheel. He is just waiting to spring. You wonder why no one's coming around? It's because they're going so fast. If you move out into the wind to try and move up in position, it will take all the sting out of your legs. So everybody now just locked into this position on the front. Liquigas drilling it for Bonatti as they come into these final sections of the course, and it's still status quo. Bonatti in 3rd, his teammate pulls off, but look at this off the right side of the bottom of your screen. Here comes Paul Martens, and he is making a big charge from 10 wheels back. Bonin sitting 3rd, now Bonin going off to the right. Bonatti trying to match him, and it looks like there's no way to match Tom Bonin. As it is, Martens trying to make it up to the side, but he cannot do it. Tom Bonin, the Belgian national champion here, winning in Italy.
Well, and executing a perfect sprint when you don't have the lead-out train. If you don't have guys in front of you from your own team, you find the wheel of the best sprinter who does have that lead-out train. That's what Bonin did. Got on the back of Daniele Bonatti and just out-sprinted him at the end. So Tom Bonin wins the sprint on stage number 2, ironically enough, because he's a guy who doesn't fancy himself as a field sprinter much anymore, more of a one-day classic specialist.
Notice that, Alexander Vinokurov in the top 10 in the field sprint. He's not known for his sprinting.
And Tom Bonin, well schooled at spraying the champagne on the podium. Now the 29-year-old off to a good start here in 2010. This is his 4th win of the season, but the first in Europe. He had 3 wins in Qatar, 1 in Oman earlier this year. So Bonin racking up some victories so far early on in the 2010 season.
Well, you got to say, Bonin has said he really wants to win Milan-San Remo in about 9 days, and so this bodes well for him.
Bonin now tied on time with Linus Gerdemann. However, Gerdemann will keep his overall blue leaders jersey going into stage number 3, and he'll have the overall leaders jersey and the lead as the race continues tomorrow, 3rd and final day in Tuscany for this year's edition of Tirreno Adriatico. There is the 27-year-old German from Milram, Linus Gerdemann, the leader of Tirreno Adriatico. And not for Tal Gagulski, I'm Steve Schlanger, and for all of us at Universal Sports, thanks for joining us. We'll see you tomorrow for stage number 3.